So the takeaway is the Little Richard's not doing his job.
All right, guys, if y'all see how cool it is in here? If y'all get on that side of the wall, there's plenty of room.
I should have had you look up every once in a while and see if it was
first thing
for
first,
future reference.
see how cool
Yeah.
it is in here? During the summer, it's like, this is like a little piece of heaven in here. So you see the tune that's straight in. That's for Bernard Maroney. Bernard Maroney was my favorite New Orleans. He was a wild child as a youngster. He became an orphan at age 14. His parents, some of the wealthiest in Louisiana, and he was an only child. Being a wild child, his uncle came over to him and said, Bernard, off to Europe to be educated. We need to calm you down. And it was commonplace to send your sons back to Europe for education at that time if he had the means. He goes to England. The only thing he learns in England and brings back with him are three main things. One, he learns how to be a playboy, and he's got the money to back it. Two, he learns the art of dueling and becomes an expert dueler, both with the blades as well as a firearm. Third thing he brings back with him is the game of hazards. Anybody knows how to play hazards or played hazards before? It's a dice game. You get down on your haunches and you're rolling dice. Well, while he's down like this, all of his buddies are looking at him and going, Bernard, you look like a toad. Now, he's saying that in French. Anybody knows how to say toad in French? He brings scraps back to North America. He loved the game, he was terrible at it, and ultimately squandered his entire inheritance of his life. Not before developing the Faubourg Marigny, which is the downriver side of the French Quarter, where Frenchman Street is, where music venues and so forth, and also the town of Vanderbilt on Wall Street. I'd love to get down some rabbit holes in him, but we just don't have that much time today. Let's do a quick timeline. I'm going to pick on our Brits that are with us this morning a little bit here on the way. So you don't pick on the low people, right? You pick on the big stuff. So, 1682, LaSalle comes down the Mississippi River, claims everything that drains into the Mississippi River for King Louis XIV of France, the Sun King. 1718, New Orleans is established. In 1762, towards the end of the French and Indians War, which is also known as the 7 Years' War in Europe, which was truly a world war, the Isle of Orleans and the land west of the Mississippi River are ceded to Spain. Overnight, we become Spanish subjects. I'm not happy about that, but it beat the alternative. And what would that alternative have been? British.
Oh. I can't blame you.
We didn't want to be British. You got to understand, here in New Orleans, we prefer happy hour over high tea. Just saying. So we remain under Spanish rule until November 30th, 1803. On November 30th, 1803, we're sitting what's now Jackson Square. We look over at the flagpole, and what do we see? We see the Spanish flag moving low. What flag goes up? The French flag. We're French flag. We're thrilled. We are excited. I don't know why. Spain did all the heavy lifting. They made Louisiana a Bible colony. The French Quarter, it's all Spanish architecture. It should be called Spanish Quarter. This is all a result of Spain. But hey, we're French again, and we start to celebrate, right? And we celebrate pretty good in New Orleans. And we celebrated for 20 days and 20 nights. On the 21st day, we look back at that same flagpole, and what did we see? On December 20th, 1803, the French flag grew low, and the Stars and Stripes formed. The Louisiana Purchase is signed in the Cabildo on December 20th, 1803. We're now Americans, and we're very upset. You can imagine why? Any suggestions on maybe why we're upset? Protestants can now come to Louisiana. Protestants can live here, they die here, and of course, they have to be buried. Let's go see how we're buried.
the levels.
It's the process, yeah. Some shade right along that wall. Please take it down. And where y'all from? Oh, y'all are from Seattle too. So,
We're together.
oh, y'all all together. I got it. So y'all all lie that y'all don't get the rain that y'all say y'all.
Don't tell anybody. That's what I told him. I was like, don't say it.
Plenty of shade along the wall. Take it down. You good?
Sun's good,
Yeah.
yeah. We
We
haven't
just
seen
had
much of
6
it.
weeks of rain. And it's still looking up.
if we have time, we may pick on y'all one more. All right. Where the heck was it? Oh, welcome to the Protestant section, right? It looks a little different back there.
These are all in the ground.
Well, there's the Protestant, there's a term we haven't covered yet this morning that you're hearing all over New Orleans. That term is Creole. Creole comes from a Portuguese word, criollo, which means native of the colony. So anyone born in the colony during the colonial period is a Creole, no matter what nationality, what race, or a mix thereof. So the Americans arrive, and excuse my pun, they do not dig the way the Creoles are burying their dead above ground. So the Americans are like, back off, we know what we're doing. So the Creoles line up on the wall behind you guys, the Americans come out here and they dig this hole. Well, the mud starts coming in, so they line it with bricks. What happens when you dig a hole? What do you build when you dig a hole and line it with bricks?
A well.
A water well. We dropped an elevation from 3 foot in the front of the cemetery to 1 foot here. You're always going to have water in that gravesite. So during the dry period, maybe 2 feet. During the wetter period, about 4 feet. You know when the rainy season is in New Orleans? Year round.
Yeah.
So you're always going to have a lot of water in it. So you put your grandmother in there, and during the dry period, you'd have to stand on top of the coffin, maybe do a little jig on top of it to get to feel the suction against the clay below. During the rainy periods, they said he used to drill holes in the coffin, sink it. Then you backfill the excavated material, you put a marble slab on top of it, look back at the Creoles in the water. That's how you do it. The Creoles look back and say, we're going to get another Sazerac. We'll see how this works for you. So you come back 4 years later, and you go visit your grandmother's gravesite, and as you're bending down, put those. Y'all recall earlier, I talked about how my grandmother would knock on her mother's tomb and say a little prayer. Whole nother situation when the tomb starts knocking back at you. You got to realize you got the tide still coming in and out. You got the river going up and down. All this vertical and horizontal movement of water right below your feet. Coffin starts to break up. You're in a wetter time where you got a lot of water in there, and you got a plank that turns upright and it starts bobbing, knocking on the post. Not too cool. They quickly realized maybe the Creoles had something with an above-ground cemetery, and they established in 1822 the Girard Street Cemetery. It's where the Superdome sits today, and unfortunately it's lost its history. Decommissioned in the late 1940s, early 1950s. These tombs, they're called coping tombs. Americans were coping with burying their dead. In the Jewish community, they have to be buried within Mother Earth. So what they would do is they'd build a four-walled retaining pit, put the coffin directly in the ground, or countersink it a little bit, bring imported fill material, pack it around the coffin, put a marble slab on it, and that would satisfy their religious obligations. So who's buried back here? Against the wall, we've got Benjamin Latrobe. Benjamin Latrobe is the father of architecture for the United States. British born. He redesigned the Capitol in Washington, D.C., as well as the Basilica in Baltimore. He got a contract, and other buildings as well. He got a contract with the city of New Orleans to work on our water system. While visiting the project site, he contracted yellow fever and became a permanent resident. This white tomb over here is the W.C.C. Claiborne, first governor of Louisiana. As a state, I should say as a territory in 1803, and as a state in 1812. He's buried there with his first wife and daughter, who died of yellow fever, and his brother-in-law, who died of flu from the governor. Yes, sir.
So there's a lot of empty space here. Why aren't they building more of the above ground?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. This property has still got title on it.
Okay.
These bodies, and I should have brought that up, I'm glad you did. These bodies were exhumed and moved into that Gerard Street Cemetery.
Okay.
So the plots are still here.
So
on
this
paper.
piece of ground is still technically owned by somebody
That's right.
somewhere. Okay.
That's right. So this plaque here is for the Battle of New Orleans. I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with the Battle of New Orleans, but it's the last major engagement in the War of 1812 against England. British forces arrived 4 miles downriver from the French border. These are battle-hardened troops that ultimately go on to defeat Napoleon at Waterloo. Andrew Jackson arrives, small contingency of regular soldiers. He immediately employs the Native Americans of the area, the Choctaw Indians. Also, Jean and Pierre Lafitte, the notorious Baratarians. Claiborne had the foresight when he became a governor in 1803, well before the War of 1812. He put a militia together, both of African descent and European descent, all well armed, all well drilled. And of course, the Tennesseans, the Kentuckians, Virginians, they're always ready for a scrap. They were here. On the last day of that battle, it was a 5-month campaign, but on the last day of that battle, on January 8, 1815, in a 3-hour battle, the U.S. suffered 13 casualties that night. 6 killed, 7 wounded. 2,300 British forces lay dead across the field. We took out their command center and had a junior officer in charge. And not to go into a lot more rabbit holes there, bottom line, that junior officer gave the field to Jackson, and the British began their retreat process, only to leave back for their. And I bring that story up for 2 reasons. Up until that point, New Orleans didn't want anything to do with the United States. We did not like being part of America. However, after that battle, we saw the advantages of being American. So that we began the Americanization process. It still took a couple of decades, but that was the beginning of it. The second thing is when you look at who manned those battle lines that day, and the women who supported those men on that battle line, it's kind of a cross-section of the United States today. And it goes to show, as we talked about it at Plessis Tomb, when we come together, we can overcome insurmountable odds. Winning that battle, we overcame insurmountable odds. There's no reason we should have won that battle. We had 2 other backup ramparts that we were ready to back up that we never had to do. But again, it goes to show when we come. Bunch of rabbit holes you go down the rest of that. That's the quickest I can do battle. Any questions? Everybody's okay on time? We're going to make one more stop inside the cemetery, and then we'll stop right out. I know we're right at the actual building.
So we never made it to that half of the cemetery?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that part of, is there a tour that does that too, or is that anything interesting over there? Same stuff?
A lot of it doesn't jive with what I want to tell y'all. And the problem is it's a 45-minute tour.
Yeah.
These things should be longer. I could keep y'all in here a long time. Longer than y'all probably want to hear my voice. I got on those side stories.
Side stories are always wonderful, though.
I'm passing up tons of them. That's what makes it really fun.
A lot of history down here.
Yeah. It's a fun history too. People come in here, and I hear some of the tour guides, not here. We're pretty organized out on the streets, and they're making up things. And there's no need for it. It's kind of like astronomy. Science fiction can't touch what's really out there.
True.
Yeah, they almost.
I'm glad we were going to come here without the tour yesterday, and I didn't realize you had to have a tour. It was actually kind of good because you never know. I mean, we could wander around here for hours and go, ooh.
Well,
But,
Michelle and I were originally talking about doing a tour.
Okay.
And then I don't know how it came to try to come here and just walk around, and then but you couldn't. And so I was like, I always like to see the tour, but I don't know what to do.
Right. Yeah. And this is there's some shade over here, guys. Yeah, it's and the reason they had to stop it, the cemetery was falling apart, and right before COVID, they were running late. Any tour guide could come in here, and before this group got the concession, there'd be 15 tours going on. One, how do you talk over somebody else? And just I was watching the cemetery breaking down. So after COVID, when I did a concession, I wouldn't mind doing this on the side. I used to do it. I used to give tours here in the '80s when I was with the National Park Service.
But now I can see why they put lots of kind of
They gotta
make it
protect.
secure it, because some people just don't respect.
No, that's right. All
It's
right,
even
guys.
worse.
Stopped here for just a few, but I stopped here on purpose. The tomb that's 3 off the walkway is the Chalmette family tomb. Chalmette was the uncle of Bernard Maroney, who sent him back to Europe for education. Also, where the Battle of New Orleans took place was on his property. Today, that battlefield is under the National Park Service and is known as Chalmette National Battlefield. The other reason I stop here is I love Mark Twain. I love his sense of humor. He went through New Orleans quite a bit. He came into the cemetery, almost exactly where we're standing here. He looked at this tomb here, and in the middle you see some exposed bricks. That used to come up and make the shape of a chimney. And he looked at that, and he looked at these other structures and said, this is the city of the dead. Well, I don't care for that phrase. We celebrate death in New Orleans. So how do we do that? We do that with the jazz funeral. And we had one come through here just a couple of weeks ago. The way jazz funeral works is you get a small brass band that comes in playing a very soft, steady tempo. Behind the brass band is the corpse. Behind the corpse is the friends and loved ones and family. They process into the cemetery. You lay your loved one to rest. As you lay them to rest, once you lay them to rest, you give the last blessings. As you walk away from the tomb, the music picks up. People start dancing, people start singing. You see umbrellas bobbing in the air. Those umbrellas protect you from the elements, whether it's the sun or the rain. You'll see handkerchiefs waving in the air. That's because you're in mourning. You're wiping tears from your eyes. Now keep in mind, we're not celebrating that person's life. We miss and mourn for our loved ones, but we're not celebrating their life. Today, let's say Uncle Joe passes away, and we're going to do it. Today, the big thing is we're going to have a celebration of life for Uncle Joe, right? It's a new thing. If you come to my funeral to celebrate my life, you're too late. Celebrate life with your family and friends while they're living. What we're celebrating in a jazz funeral is that person, we celebrate the fact that faith tells us that person is going to a better place. The song when the saints go marching in, nothing to do with the football team. It's a funeral processional song. It might resemble our football team at times, but I want to be in that number when the saints go marching in, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole about my New Orleans Saints. I guarantee we won't lose to that. We got five. We do another thing here called a second line parade. Very similar to a jazz funeral, except there's not a corpse associated with it. We do that for weddings, we do it for funerals, we do it for sporting events, we do it during carnival. Last night, if you were in the French Quarter, there was a chance you might have seen a second line go through. The bride and groom with decorated umbrellas behind the brass band, and all the family and friends waving handkerchiefs behind us. Those people have no idea why they're waving a handkerchief. Y'all now know what the origin is, but more than that, the reason we don't use a handkerchief, we usually use a small towel. Because if you dance in the streets in New Orleans, typically it's hot and humid, and you need something to wipe your brow. Any questions?
So just one follow up. When people are moved from the wall to the crypts themselves, is there a ceremony?
No. When they go into the wall, they step.
Okay, I thought they.
They own. It's almost like a condominium.
Okay, they're never moved out of from one place to the other unless there was no space to put them in.
That's right. You go and retrieve them to bring them back.
Okay. Is there a ceremony? Is there a religious ceremony about that or not?
No, that's a good question. There's going to be a certain amount of religious ceremony moving one's remains.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's go wrap things up right outside the wall. And look, I'm sorry I'm running late here. I guess I should say thank y'all for letting me. Thank y'all for entertaining me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now that one looks really dilapidated.
Yeah, that's it. Make a great black and white.
The interesting thing is that during the work program, the CCC came out and they brought historians down here.
Turn it live.
First time affordable, reliable housing. So they've got like everything that would be like in the 30s.
Oh, really? Okay.
That is cool.
So when you do the restoration, they got something.
And they have like because some of these are degrading as far as the names go. So well, I guess you said they have records for them anyway.
That's right. And not everybody gets a name on the block.
I'd say a new one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to tie the church in across the street to the cemetery. We'll be here just a few moments. Keep my fingers crossed I don't have a 10:30 program. All right, guys, across the street, if y'all come in just a little bit, my voice is going to get washed out. Look across the street, you see this church. It's Our Lady of the Guadalupe Church, or the Mortuary Chapel. It's the oldest church building in New Orleans. It was established in 1826. Now the cathedral has always been there, but it burned twice and it was remodeled in the 1850s. It was designed strictly for funerals. There were no funerals in that church. There was no time for a ceremony. You got your last blessings out the back door, and the new procession would come in. But my favorite story is this: statues started coming in, right? You had St. Anne, St. Jared, St. Joseph. One of the statues that came in, they didn't have a tag to it. The only thing they could find stamped to the side of the grave was expedite, which is Latin for export. Obviously, we don't know our Latin. You go in that church today, up in the back right hand corner, and you'll find St. Expedite. He's got a nameplate, he's got prayer cards. He's not recognized by the Catholic Church. But in this world of everybody wanting something yesterday, right? You could go there and get his prayer card and maybe become it. I'll leave y'all with this. At 11, I think it's 11:30. They have a jazz mass at 9:30 and 11:30. I believe those are the right times. That's of interest to you, check it. But that's always could be a lot of fun. Also, in the Garden District, or really Uptown District, they have the Po' Boys Festival. It's kind of quiet around the world, so that's of interest to me. That's always fun. It goes on until about 6 o'clock. Outside of that, any questions? Enjoyed bringing y'all through. I know y'all all traveling. Safe travels to all y'all. And come back and visit us.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here for you in any direction. So.